Good morning, learners. You're speaking to Murata, Subject Advisor for Geography. Today, I want us to come and focus on the last chapter for our 2014-2015, which is the Economic Geography. Can we please go deeper into it? The whole idea behind going for Economic Geography is to make sure that we complete our syllabus in time. And the revision for the question papers will be done at school level. May I also take this time to wish you all the best in this chapter. You must remember this is the easiest chapter, together with settlement geography, that we always focus on wholeheartedly. Not saying climatology and geomorphology is not important, but this is where we normally collect a lot of marks. Can we go strictly into it and go slowly and surely? And where you've got questions, you may ask, and we'll try to clarify the questions as far as possible. Can we go into our presentation, which is the Economic Geography of South Africa? Now, every time when you come across the Economic Geography of South Africa, we must make sure that, like I've said, we collect as much points as possible, so that we must keep on going higher and higher. We are now doing the third term's work, and we have been climbing the steps slowly and surely. Please don't remain behind. Make sure that you move with us. We are almost towards the top of our pyramid. And when we reach there, it will be in September, where we'll start to say how far are we ready for our 2015 examination. Now, please work hard, climb irrespective of whether it's stormy or what, so that we can go and reach the higher. Remember, 2015, we are depending entirely on your efforts to make sure that you pass at the end of the term. Now, every time under this economic geography, we've got what we call the economic sectors. Then, amongst our economic sectors, we've got how many of them? 4 of them. We've got the primary activities, we've got secondary activities, we've got tertiary activities, and we've got the quaternary activities. Now, it's very important that you focus on them. We know exactly what each and every one of them mean, and how can that contribute to the boosting or the collapse of the economy of our country. Then lastly, under this chapter of the economic geography, we'll also talk of the informal sector. That is the last part that will be included under the economic geography. It's not a long chapter, it's a short chapter, it's easy to pass. It needs a thorough presentation and hard work, so that at the end of the day, you pass and you pass well. Let's move. With these economic activities, we've got the classification of them. Now, what are primary activities? We say primary activities includes the extraction of raw materials from nature, and the examples, you know them, of primary economic activities. We'll talk of your farming, we'll talk of your fishing, we'll talk of your forestry, and we'll even include your mining. Now, when we check towards the right-hand side of our slide, you'll start to see that they are extracting from the nature. They're extracting from nature, and this defines when we talk of the primary activities and their examples. The second activity will be your secondary activity. In the secondary activity, what do? We say now we are adding value to what? To raw material. What do we have produced or what do we have extracted from nature? Now we started to process. That's why in another textbook they say the secondary activity, that is the processing of the raw material. And you started to have companies' names that are busy in processing those materials. You could also find here that we can even include your industries, where you will start now to say, let's now start to process what we have produced in the primary activities. And then also move to the last one to say, now the third one will be the tertiary activity. In the tertiary activity, what do we do? Now here we provide nothing else but services. When one looks on your slide there, you'll find that we are providing an example of a service there, and in this instance, we are providing your electricity. Examples will be your distribution of the very same services, the selling of products, or even what we are doing now, engaging in an educational activity where this instance will be teaching, but definitely we are giving services. The fourth one will be the quaternary sector. This is where we started to say now, you specialize in the service rendered by what? By professionals. And examples of your quaternary sector will mean your administrations, your home affairs, your information, and even your research or your IT section, where we started to say, now let's move even deeper into the quaternary sector. Now the primary activities, we extract raws. Secondary activity, we process them or we add value to them. In the tertiary sector, we give service. And then in the quaternary, we now started to provide a specialized service. We start now to give a specialized service. Can either be your administration, your information, or your research. You can also move further with the activities. Now, under the primary activities, we've got now two types of farming that I want us to talk about, or your agricultural sector. You've got now the subsistence farmer, and you now have your commercial farmer, who's working directly with nature. He's preparing the soil, and because he's using an old method of plowing, then we say he will then be our subsistence farmer. But when one checks on the right-hand side, you'll find that you've got now a farmer who's also preparing the soil, but in this instance, he is using machines, and therefore we talk of a commercial farmer. Now, how do we define the two? In a subsistence farming, we say a farmer produces only for the needs or for the family. What is he using? He's using the traditional methods of farming. Further than that, his production is less production or less yields or small yields. What about money? You'll be getting a little amount of money. Will he have surplus? Sometimes yes, sometimes a small portion, sometimes even no. That's why we say he only produces for the family. But when we check of the commercial farmer, he specializes in producing for what? For market purpose. He is using modern methods of farming. His production is very huge, large production or large yields. He's making a lot of money, and then there will be a lot of surplus. Remember, a commercial farmer is a farmer whom the whole country depends on our day-to-day living in terms of the food security, on our day-to-day living. But a subsistence farmer only produces for his own family. Let's continue. Then we say, always under agriculture, what do? We cultivate our plants, and we make sure that our animals gives us food for any production that we want to have. Now, we've got a very interesting, I want you to take very much note of this. We now start to talk of your food security. Now, when you check a subsistence farmer and a commercial farmer, now, between the two, whom can we rely on entirely as a country to say, now will give us food security? You know the definition of food security. This is when everyone has access to food so that you live a healthy and a nutritious lifestyle. Now, what is the role of agriculture to the country? What will be the role of agriculture? Agriculture gives us food. Agriculture provides us with a what? A wide variety of products. Agriculture gives us jobs. Agriculture helps with the development of services. Remember, if we can make money in terms of the products that we have produced, this can help us in the improvement of our infrastructure, because the government will have now gained money, and after that they can start to improve any infrastructure, your roads, your rails, your electricity, your services and everything. They will have an impact of how much is the agriculture doing in terms of us. Now we say, what are the roles? Agriculture, honestly, we depend on it for what? For food. It gives us, South Africa, to produce a wide variety of products. Now, in terms of this wide variety of products, I think you can also remember to say, when you've got your South Africa, we'll start to have the Western Cape area, which will get rainfall when? During, I will give you W for the winter season. Winter products will be found there. Then you've got the interior part of South Africa, which will get rainfall when? During mostly your summer season. And we'll start to have another different crops that we get there. Then you've got the eastern part of our country that will receive rainfall. I'll put E for the eastern part of South Africa. That will give us rainfall all throughout the year. And there will be also different types of products that will be produced there. In this instance, we say agriculture helps South Africa to produce a wide variety of products. Definitely, it gives us jobs. Our brothers and sisters are working in the agricultural sector to earn a living, and it gives them jobs or work. Then it gets the development of services. Let's move. At the very same time, we've got what we call the limiting factors. What are the factors now that are limiting this agricultural sector? Negative factors. Sometimes you find that you've got what? Drought. Your seasonal drought. If it's dry, then we know that our agriculture will definitely suffer. And the very same poverty as a limiting factor in our agricultural sector. And including the erosion process. If your farms are attacked by erosion, or you've got a lot of floods or rainfall, the soil will be eroded and you'll start to have small yields in our agriculture. It is further affected negatively by a dense population. The number of people that are increasing, and they're increasing in numbers. Remember, if they come in numbers, what would they do? They will end up taking the land that we need so much. The land that we need so much for our agricultural sector. So this dense population will definitely also have an impact as a limiting factor. And then you've got poor farming methods. If a farmer is not using proper contour plowing, then you find that can lead to a lot of erosion, and as a result, we'll start to have small yields or have less production. And those are the limiting factors in agricultural sector. When we move on, we've got the contribution of agriculture to the South African economy. If this agriculture is a sector that is vibrant, that is okay, that is producing, how is it contributing to our own economy? How is it contributing to our economy? Then we say the first one It provides us with what? With raw materials for our what? For our industries. Remember we said you produce, in the primary, in the secondary, you process. So the very same agriculture contributes into our economy by giving us raw materials for the industries so that we process and we sell and we export. The very same agriculture provides us with what? With jobs or employment. Then if we earn a living, life will be better for us. Then contribution to the economy through what? Through the exports. And remember, immediately we export products outside, then we start to earn what? Our foreign currency, because we'll now start to work with the outside countries and we gain the foreign currency. Then our economy will definitely be boosted. The fourth one, how is it agriculture contributing to our economy? We say always you find that the farming equipment is very expensive, but check how important is this agriculture. But South Africa, we can do what? We can manufacture our own equipment locally, therefore making it a little bit cheaper for us. For example, mostly as we speak, we've got our locally manufactured irrigation schemes. So the contribution is that we start now to have our own expertise. We start now to develop our own products where our equipment locally, and they will be cheaper for us to use. This agriculture also contributes to our economy in which way? We start now to have farming profits, make money, which helps us to do what? We have just talked about this. It helps us to improve our infrastructure. So if we have money, then it becomes easier for us to improve our own infrastructure. Now, in summary, we say the contribution of agriculture to our economy, what do? Provides us with raw materials that we use in industries. It gives us jobs that we must earn a living on day-to-day basis. It contributes to the economy through our exports. We export products, therefore we earn the foreign currency. Then we can also manufacture our own equipment locally so that they become cheaper for our own use and they are not as expensive as we have to import them from outside or buy them. Then we say the very same farming profits, the money that we make there helps us to improve our own infrastructure. Your roads, your railways, your bridges, your services that you get there, we can improve them. Now, what are the main products that were produced in our country? Main ones, the main products. So amongst them, you've got your maize, you've got your sugar cane. We are now talking of a stock farmer in terms of cattle. And then you've got your own home market, locally based. We can also have an international where we start now to export our products outside. Please work hard on this. There are 2 to 4 mark questions on them, and then we must always make sure that if it's 2 marks each, then we gain points. If it's 4 or 6, then we don't have a hassle. And this is a chapter, like I said, where we perform even better. So let's work hard on it. Let's move. Now we started to have a comparison. Now we must compare 2 types of farmers. We have your small-scale farmers, and then we have your large-scale farmers. And then the difference between the 2 or in comparison, what do we say? We say small-scale farmers are farmers with limited what? Resources. We've got limited resources. Then large-scale farmers, they use mostly the machines, commercial farmers. We say small-scale farmers are those that sell directly to what? To consumers through the markets. Very important. They sell to people, but through the markets. And then commercial farmers or large-scale farmers, they sell directly to markets and they've got a lot of profit. Then the small scale farmers are those who grow vegetables or fruits in some instance, while they are also raising what? Livestock. It means they can be crop farmers and at the very same time stock farmers. But when you check the large scale farmers, we say these are mostly specialized in order to have what? More information about whatever farming activity they're involved in. If he's now a stock farmer, he keeps in one type of a stock and he gathers all the information about those sheep and make sure that he knows if they are sick in this way, he can give them certain injection, they are fed like this, and how to crossbreed them with other types of sheep so that at the end of the day, the yields are high. That's why we say he normally focuses on crop farming, or he only focuses on a stock farmer in terms of the two. So small scale farmers and large scale farmers, when we compare the two, this is how it will be wise for you to compare them. When we continue, say, in this agricultural sector, you've got factors that do what? That favors the agricultural sector. Factors that gives a plus. Why this agricultural sector is succeeding, which factors are important, and those that are helping the agricultural sector to continue forever. We say the first one is that there is a high demand. It means always these farmers, they've got what? They've got a market for their farming products. Whatever they've produced, they know for a fact that they're going to sell it somewhere to the market. So that becomes a what? A favoring factor. It's a plus. It's a plus to the agricultural sector. And farmers will know that they will be selling their products very much easily. It becomes a plus. The second one. Another favoring factor is that the fertile floodplains of rivers allow farmers to do what? To produce what? More crops, or to have what? A grazing land or pastures in those areas. Another plus is that there is a lot of fertile area where they can produce more crops, or where they can take their stock for pasturage or for grazing land. Another important factor that favors agriculture is that the eastern half of our country, which part? The eastern half of South Africa gets more than what? 500 millimeters of rainfall in a year. And if they get 500 more rainfall in a year, it tells you to say they are going to produce a lot. Just like we highlighted in the previous slide, we agree to say when you check South Africa, you'll find that you've got the western part, you've got the central part, and you've got the eastern part of our country. Now we say the very same eastern part of our country is getting 500 more millimeters of rain. Why is it a plus? Remember, only in the interior will depend on them during summer season. On the southwestern Cape will depend on them in winter. But the eastern part of our country gets rainfall all throughout the year, and the percentage can start to tell you that it's 500 and more, and it's a reliable rainfall that will get on the eastern part of our country, and that will be another important factor that we get when we talk of, that will also be another important factor that we get when we talk of factors favoring agriculture in our country. The fourth one, the relatively high what? High summer temperatures helps us to do what? helps us to grow crops well and increase our production. Our production will definitely increase because of high summer temperatures. When we take this back, we could also relate it to what we talked about when we were talking about the katabatic wind. To say every time on those katabatic winds, we highlighted that the valley floor here under the katabatic will be cold. And once we started to talk of your aspect, if you've got your sun there, the north facing will start to have the direct sun rays, if you remember well. Now we say these summer high temperatures, they will be very helpful for us, not only in a valley, but also on a flat surface where we'll now start to grow our crops. So we need that sunlight, and that will also be a very important factor that will help us to increase our production, so that we say now these are the favoring factors in agriculture. The fifth one, if we move to the fifth one, we say also the availability of what? Availability of labor. People that work in this agricultural sector. Remember, if we don't have them, the laborers, there's no way that we can produce. So if we've got workers, then we say it's a positive factor. It's a plus in agriculture. The first one we say it's what? There must be a high demand for market. The second one we say the area is very fertile. Our land is fertile, therefore we can produce more crops, and also the grazing together with more crops. The third one we say we are thankful to the eastern half of our country because it will get 500 millimeters of rain. And then the relatively high summer temperature. Which season? The relatively high summer temperatures helps us to increase our crop production. And very important, we must now look at the laborers, people that work in agriculture, and they give us nothing else but a plus or a favoring factor in the agricultural sector of our country. Let's move, learners, and make sure that we make the whole South Africa happy by the end of this year to complete our matric with a distinction. This is one chapter where you could get a distinction. I promise you, together with settlement, can get out of 150 of it, can get 140 marks. Let's put the heart behind our work and work very hard. However, as much as we've got the positive factors, we now also have the negative factors in agriculture. The positive ones, now we are going to take factors hindering agriculture in South Africa. What are those factors that hampers our agriculture? The first one, we say, always we have rainfall that is very low. And sometimes it's what? It's unreliable, especially where? On the plateau. I'll redraw, which limits the crop production and decrease the availability of pasturage for stock in a country. Just like we've done with the previous slide. The plateau means nowhere else but here, the interior part of South Africa. This will be your plateau. This will be your plateau area where you have the interior part, the central part of our country. Now we say, what is a limiting factor here? A limiting factor is that in the interior part or on the plateau, rainfall is sometimes how? It's very low. Or if it rains, it's low or it is unreliable. If then it's unreliable, it means it limits our what? Our crop production. And it decreases the availability of what? If you are a stock farmer with animals and you are placed in the interior and all of a sudden the grass turns now yellowish or dry because of lack of rainfall. It's either when it rains it's less, or it's not even raining, or it rains unexpectedly, unreliably. Then we say we'll start to have a problem with your what? With your pasturage. And that is basically the limiting factor which we don't like to have within our own interior. Let's move to the second one. We say the second one, you started to have now your soil erosion. Soil erosion due to what? An incorrect farming methods. And I want you to tell me, if we've got an incorrect farming methods, do you think it will be done by a stock farmer or a crop farmer? Incorrect farming methods, stock farmer or a crop farmer, both of them. But now, will he incorrectly farming in terms of a subsistence farmer or a commercial farmer? Remember, subsistence farmers, they produce only for their families, both of them. Can have an incorrect farming methods done by a subsistence farmer, but mostly the commercial farmers, they will give you correct farming methods because they were educated. They attended school for the farming courses. The third one, another factor that is limiting our agriculture is what? Natural hazards or floods. Or you can start to have your hailstorm damage, where now this hailstorm will destroy your crops and stock, and this will decrease your production and also your profit. The fourth one, we say, what is another factor that is negatively affecting our agriculture? We say, very true. If our workers are suffering from an impact of HIV and AIDS, it has a negative impact on their health and also on their productivity, because you can't work when you are sick. And this will have a negative impact on the farm workers. And then we also talk of the fluctuations of prices. What do you mean when we say prices are fluctuating? That is when the prices go up and tomorrow they go down. And this makes it how? Very difficult for farmers to stay in the business. Remember, if you produce a crop and you have seen that you anticipated to make 4 million, because one of your tin of fish will be 12 rand, and all of a sudden now that tin of fish is now 5 rand. It means you are losing 3 rand. Now, they will end up fluctuating, going up and down in terms of prices. Ultimately, farmers run at a loss and they lose mostly their profit. So the fluctuation of prices is not supposed to happen. It is affecting the farmers negatively. Then the sixth one that is affecting the farmers are what? Pests, your insects, which affect either your crops or even your animals. And for you to control this pest, it is very expensive. It's very costly to control, and they cause a decrease in the production and profits. This is a fact. If your animals are attacked by insects, then you have to go and buy medicines for your animals, and those medicines, they will need you to spend even more money. And ultimately, it becomes a very serious negative impact, because it will decrease the production and profits due to those pests. Learners, make sure that you don't attend any examination, any test, especially when the teachers say come prepared with these factors favoring agriculture, factors limiting agriculture, the explanation of each and economic sector that we have. Remember, we talked something about food security. when we were discussing earlier on the slides. Now we said food security is when people have what? Enough food to eat in order to do what? To sustain a healthy life. People must have access to food, and once food is available and people are using the very same food, then we say your food security is what? Is stable. There is a stability in your food security. However, you also have factors affecting your food security. How? Negatively. We want to have a lot of food, but there are factors that are affecting the very same food negatively. Just like we have mentioned the last part with the limiting factor in agriculture, number one will be your pests or your diseases on animals and in crops. Because now, let's check this truck. Here's a truck, a smart one, you can see, but there's something not good about it. Yes, it is transporting, or it is expected to transport food, but there are no wheels. So because there are no wheels, it says it is a symbol that it is affecting our food negatively. And what are those factors that will make sure that we don't get food? The first one will be your pests or your diseases on crops. If we've got your wars, it will also be a negative factor on food security. And then, like we mentioned earlier, HIV and AIDS will also be a factor that will affect your food negatively. Or natural disasters like floods, natural disasters like droughts will affect your food security negatively. And then also, if you've got farmers that have less knowledge, where you have poor farming methods, it's a negative factor. And basically, if there are no infrastructure, no services, no roads to transport products from one area to the other, from farms to the markets, that will also hamper your own food security and become your negative factor. Also, when they don't use what? Machines. Because remember, we wanted to supply the whole country. And to supply the whole country, it must be a commercial farmer who's using a lot of machines. The other factor is the rural depopulation, laborers. People are moving, all of them, from rural areas to urban areas. Then we started to have shortage of laborers. And poverty that has stricken, erosion, the politics, and then high population growth. Once you've got a lot of people that you must feed, it becomes also a negative factor on your food security. Learners, let's move on. Let's get it rolling so that we give results. Results are expected by your school, your teacher. It starts with your teacher, your school, now the district, now the province, and the country. And all of us, we say push and push very hard to attain those best results for 2015. Every one of us, we are running a race and we are running it equally. So don't stay behind. We must move step by step and we must reach our goal. We've got food security, we have mentioned it. We've got food insecurity, and we have also mentioned the two. What do you mean by food security? When we say now, let's talk food security. Like we mentioned, is when all the people have what? Enough food, or they have access to food to meet their what? Their daily needs for a what? For a healthy and productive life. Then we say there's food security. The second one, you've got food insecurity. This is when not all the people have enough food to meet their needs for a what? For a healthy and a productive life. Then we started to talk of your food insecurity. Here are some of the factors or what? Reasons why people have enough food. What makes us to believe that in a country there is food security? What are the factors influencing the very same food security? We say the first factor is that we depend on commercial farms are able to produce what? Enough food due to favorable climatic factors or conditions. So the first plus for us why people have enough food is because we've got people that are working day to day, commercial farmers, to give us food. And the conditions or the climatic conditions are very much favorable. Why do we have enough food in our country? It's because people can afford to do what? To buy food. Remember, we talked of market. In other words, farmers have what? Have market. They can sell their products to the market. So it's a factor that is making sure that we have food, because they can make money, can have profit. The third one, the need to do what? We must import food from our own country at a what? At a high cost, in order to reduce because it is grown where? Locally. Must make sure that we import food from other countries at high costs is reduced, because what do? We now have food locally. So in other words, the third point that makes us to have food is that we can grow crops locally. We can have our own food. We can manufacture our own food. So we don't have to import food from other countries. So it becomes a positive factor that is making sure that we have food. The fourth one, we've got what type of food? Genetically modified crops. Remember, why are crops genetically modified? Because these crops will now be resistant to what? To the very same pests and diseases, and also to various viruses, so more crops can be produced. 4 factors that we have talked about. Factors that makes us to say we have enough food. Number 1, we say the first factor that we have talked about is that we've got commercial farmers. Very reliable. Who can give us food. The second one is that we've got market, where we can buy the food, where the farmers can sell their products. That's why we have enough food. The third one is that we don't buy food from outside. We don't buy food from outside. What do? We grow food locally. And it says if it's grown locally, it will be cheaper. If we get it from outside, it will be expensive. So it's a plus. It's a good thing that we grow crops locally, because it will be cheaper. The fourth point is what? Your genetically modified crops. Genetically modified crops are the crops that will make sure that they are resistant to any diseases, they are resistant to any pests and viruses, and they can now start to be produced, or they can start to yield more production. Learners, let's make sure that we do our best when we are requested to give factors that are making sure that people have enough food, or factors influencing our food security. See, I've made a stroke here. Factors influencing our food security, and those will be the factors. Let's continue with food security and food insecurity. Some of the factors or reasons why people do not, why people do not have enough food. Remember the previous slide, we gave 4 factors why we have enough food. Now let's also check, why don't we have enough food? We say we don't have enough food, or there is food insecurity in our country, number one, if we've got lack of fertile soil. If we don't have fertile soil, then we cannot produce a lot. The second one, if we've got a continuous climate change, it will increase what? Natural disasters, which will be your drought, which will be your floods, and these can be very disastrous to our crops, or they can damage the crops. The third one is when you are poor, survival of the fittest. When you are poor, it is more difficult to do what? To buy things you need to farm with, such as you cannot buy enough land, you cannot buy equipment, you cannot buy seeds, you cannot buy irrigation system. You can see that this will be a disaster in this farm. So we say we have food insecurity if farmers definitely they cannot afford to run a farm. They cannot buy the farm land, they cannot buy equipment, they cannot buy seeds, they cannot buy irrigation systems. So it's a negative factor that will make us not to have enough food. The fourth one, we say subsistence farmers. Which ones? Subsistence farmers are often uneducated about ways to improve crop production. So land is often, number one, overused for crops or overgrazed by the very same cattle. Now we say out of all these factors that we have, why do we say there will be shortage of food? There will be shortage of food, number one, if we start to have infertile land. The soil will be poor, so we'll lack food. Two, if you start to have climate change, where you say natural disasters are striking the country, they will include your drought and your floods. Third one, when you are poor or you are a poor farmer, will start to be in trouble because you cannot afford to own that piece of land, because you cannot afford the land, you cannot afford the equipment, you cannot afford the seeds, you cannot afford the irrigation. So it's a negative factor towards our food security. And then the last one, we say is very same subsistence farmers, they did not attend school. They are uneducated about how to improve their crop production. So land is often overused. They don't rotate. They overuse the land either in a form of crops or they overgraze the land. They don't rotate in a form of stock farmers. Now, in conclusion, we'll have the contribution of our mining sector, which is the part that we'll have to come and talk about when we come from the break, where we must make sure that the mining sector is also included. Like I mentioned, make sure that we go through all our information from the beginning part of it. The economic geography is a simple chapter. It's a chapter where we can get a lot of marks. So please, let's prepare and prepare well with it. When we come from the break, we'll continue. Thank you very much, and let's take a cup of water. Thank you, Lenas. I think we are back now after taking a cup of water and relaxing a little bit. Remember to go a long way with the theory part, and without not stretching, it's not going to be very helpful. Now I want us to go to the second part of the primary sector or the primary economic activity, which is our mining. That under mining in South Africa, we've got the contribution of mining to the South African economy. Now, what is the help of mining in terms of our own country? We say mining sector. The mining sector provides us with what? With many jobs, which makes sure that we are all employed and we don't lose much jobs, or we won't be unemployed anymore. Then we say the contributing factor of mining, or the contribution of mining to South African economy, is that the mining supplies us with what? With raw materials to the secondary activities, such as your what? Such as your factories, and such as your what? Such as your industries. And once we have supplied these raw materials to, remember, to the secondary activities, these in turn will do what? Will stimulate what you call industrial development. We explained earlier to say the primary sector must produce from the natural raw material. Then after it has produced, it's important that all what we have produced, we take it to the secondary sector to go and process it. And after we have processed it, then we'll take it for services to go and sell it in stores. And very important, once we start now to take products from the primary to the secondary, that will stimulate, or it will foster an industrial development in our own area. The third one, we say always when mines starts up, or when mines develop, new towns and new transport networks will definitely develop around the mine. And what will that mean? It will mean that your economy will be boosted. Your town will start to grow even bigger, because now once the town is developed, once you've got a mine, then you must start to introduce the transport network that will move from the new town to the mines, and in that way you'll start to boost your own area in terms of the impact of mining on our economy. We say mining also stimulates other sectors of the economy, such as what? It stimulates your farming, it stimulates your building, it stimulates your trade to meet the needs of a what? Of a growing number of people who live and work in the mining towns. You say immediately you started to have your mine. Now other sectors must start also to be part of it. You'll start to have your own mine, then other sectors which will definitely be part of this mine must start also to develop. We say these sectors will include what? The farming sector, where we get the materials from, where you started to have your own farm. It will also develop. Remember what we said? We said for farming, one of the positive factors for farming is that there must be market. They must know exactly from here we are going to sell our products somewhere. Now, in that way, the network is now expanding. But it's not only farming. We started to say some of the materials will be products that are used to building, for building materials. Then you'll start also to have another firm there where we'll be now working with making bricks, your coral brick. But very important, there will also be a trade link in between. There will also be development of roads in between the whole area. And these will now start to have a growing number of people who live in there, must start to have that network and next to the mining town, or who work in the mining towns. That's why we say harbors like Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape and Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal, what are they doing? They are growing bigger to cope with what? With an increased mineral, very important, mineral what? exports to other countries. This creates what? It creates more jobs, and also it helps other sectors of the economy to do what? To grow. Just like we've explained that mining, once it develops in terms of the economy, other sectors will also have to come to the picture. Then we say the export of mining products increase the profits of our own mines. When we do what? When we export our products, what will be the benefit to our economy is that it will start to increase our profit in terms of mine, because very important, will now starting to be any what we call your foreign currency. And on that, it's important that we check every factor that we can talk about in terms of this mining. The very same mining, we say it must now affect your what? Your mining must now affect, it must affect positively, or it must be affected negatively. Now, the mining factors that makes mining more productive, that makes your mining more productive, and factors that makes your mining more profitable will include your what? These will definitely be the positive factors. Then we agree to say mining has many different what? Mining has many different minerals which can be mined and used in factories or exported from our country to earn us what we call what? Your foreign currency. Now, one important factor that we have in terms of our mining, we say mining has many different minerals. Now, amongst all these minerals, we say make sure that we export them. What do? We must export those minerals. And after we have exported those minerals, what is our gain as in South Africa? We will now start to gain a foreign currency. Profit will start to come in. Then we move further. We move further to say South African minerals benefit from having a lot of what? A lot of skilled and unskilled people. Because we have a lot of laborers, we are now able to get our own people whom are unskilled. And because they are unskilled, it is easy for them to work in the mines, and that will be a plus for us in terms of what? In terms of laborers. We'll start to have a lot of people that are available to work. This becomes a very important factor because it helps with what? It helps with labor costs that are less, and we can therefore make what? Make a lot of profit. I don't want to dwell much into this, but it's a fact to say we've got many people that are unskilled, and that makes part of our labor, and we can now start to do what? To have lower labor costs. We don't pay them much, we pay them less, and therefore we gain a lot of money in terms of profits. Let's move on. Another promoting factor or the positive factor is that we've got foreign skilled miners. It means these are our people that we get from what? From outside. And because we get them from outside, they come and work in South African mines and benefit with what? We benefit from their knowledge and from their skill. We start now to benefit from their knowledge. The fourth point will be that many countries invested money in our what? What do? They invest money in our mines. Many countries started to invest money. It becomes a positive fact which assists the further development, of our mines, and definitely the lowering of what? The lowering of costs. That is the fourth point. Let's move to the last point. We say a well-developed infrastructure becomes also another important factor. If we've got roads, we've got railway lines, we've got water, and we've got electricity, this will having a very important in assisting our minds to do their what? To start to do their own businesses. So when we summarize the positive factors in our minds, we say positive factors or factors favoring, factors that are favoring or promoting our mining is that the first one, we've got many different minerals. Then after we've got these minerals, we are able to do what? To export them to the outside countries. And if we have exported them to outside countries, we started now to earn your foreign exchange. The second point that we talk about is that we've got a lot of unskilled people. Now, because we've got laborers and they are unskilled, how can we pay them? We pay them lower labor costs. We pay them less, and therefore we make what? A lot of profit. Because they are unskilled, they cannot be paid higher. But at the very same time, now we must go and get skilled people. Now we have foreign skilled miners who will now come to work in our country. And what is the plus that we get from them? We get their knowledge and their skills from them. That is the third point. Then we've got the fourth point, which says to us, many countries, what do? They invest money in our mines, which assist the further development of mines and the lowering of costs. The last one, once we've got those well-developed mines, it's very important, we are able to have a lot of improved infrastructure, like your roads, your railway lines, and water. And once you've got all these in terms of even the electricity, then the mines can start to do their business well. As much as we've got the positive factors, my learners, it's important that we've got the negative factors. Now, what are the negative factors? You say, these factors, we call them hindering factors. They are negative. Or these are what we call the restricting factors. Or what? The limiting factors. Check the words that will be used in the examinations and in the test. But now we wanted to give you as much information as we could ever get. These factors makes mining what? Less productive, as you can see, and we'll start to have what? Less profit becomes the order of the day. Why? Because they are negative. What are those that makes mining to have less profit and be less productive? The first one, higher temperatures. In the mines, it's very hot. In some underground mines, creates difficult working conditions. Because it is hot, it creates difficult working conditions, and this decreases what? Productivity. It decreases what? Productivity. Now, because it is hot, it becomes very difficult to work in underground, and therefore the conditions will not be conducive, and it will decrease your productivity. What is the next factor that also has an impact? It is because of the large distance. Large distance between what? Your large distance between your mines and your harbors. Remember, every time when you have your own, from the center, interior of South Africa, towards the outer part, towards your harbors, we say, because now you'll have to travel a long distance, moving from the interior part of South Africa towards the harbors. That becomes a limiting factor, because you'll be using what? You'll be using a lot of money to transport your products, so that you take them to what? So that you take them to your markets. The second one, distance. from this interior part of South Africa towards the outskirts will definitely becomes also a limiting factor, because remember the transport cost will also make sure that your your products are increased in terms of price. The third one, there is a high cost in what? In training and housing of mine workers. To keep those miners there and to give them house, it becomes very expensive. It becomes a limiting factor, in a sense that mines now have to spend a lot of money to keep those people in those hostels. Very important also to train some of them. It's a lot of money. And it becomes a limiting factor because they are now using a lot of money. The other one, now one can start to remember the Marikana problem. Mine workers strike also decrease what? Productivity, and also decreases what? Profits. Remember, we can take an example of any mine where there are normally strikes. Any mine. I was just making an example of Marikana. Then another one is we've got water shortage. If we've got shortage of water and underground flooding, mines are a serious problem. And it is very expensive, my learners, to fix these problems. It's very expensive to fix the very same problems. Now let's make an example here. Once you started to have a shortage of water, it becomes a problem for any mine to dig underground there. Because when you check them, you find that they are always reducing friction between what they will be mining with water. So if there's less, then it becomes a problem. Number two, it's because if you have now to control all those costs, it becomes very expensive. And this will decrease definitely. You'll start to have a decrease in your what? A decrease in your profit. The other limiting factor is that you must always ensure that all miners are safe. Ensuring safety of mines is very costly, especially where you have your tunnel roofs. Where you have your tunnel roofs, where they can at any time do what? Where they can at any time collapse. Then you've got a problem with ensuring the safety of your miners. Now let's recap them. Let's recap them. Say the first one, a limiting factor is that it is hot underground. So it's not easy to make money. Productivity. The second one, we say there's a large distance between what? When you move from the interior part of South Africa, you have to move from Joburg, and then you must transport all your products to Durban. It becomes now a very serious cost problems in terms of transportation. That is the second one, becomes a limiting factor. The third one, always with regard to costs. When you have to train your laborers, when you have to house them in the hostels, it becomes very expensive. That is the third one. The fourth one, always when miners go on strike, it decreases productivity and we start to have less profit. And the fifth one, water shortage. Once you've got less water, then it's a problem to work underground, and to fix that problem, it's very expensive, especially when you've got also an underground flooding. If you've got an underground flooding, it becomes a problem, and to fix that, it's very expensive. The last one, ensuring safety to the miners or the laborers, it's also very, very expensive to work on it. Now, I want us to go to the impact of mining on the environment. If we've got these mines that we are so proud of, if we've got these mines that we want always to keep, what is the impact of these mines in terms of our own environment? The process involved in removing the minerals from where? From the earth. When we mine products, have a negative impact on our what? It has a negative impact on our environment. As much as we want that gold, as much as we want that coal, as much as we want any mineral that we get from underground, it has a negative impact on our environment. Some of the negative effects of mining are the following. Every time when we have to have a mine, we must do what? We must remove the natural vegetation. So the natural vegetation is removed to clear the ground for what? For mining to take place. So every time when you see a mine, as geographers, we know that the environment has suffered because we have now removed the vegetation for mining to take place. And doing so, in removing the vegetation, what is the impact? We start to have now to have a lot of soil erosion. Removal of the topsoil, and it will be deposited elsewhere. And that is not supposed to be the case. Vegetation must always be kept so that we don't have erosion at all costs. So our environment suffers. We say, how is it suffering? The first one, we remove vegetation, and that promotes soil erosion. The second part, when vegetation is again what? Removed, what happens? We are now impacting negatively on the natural habitats, and this destroys our what? That we depend on day to day, our ecosystem. And the very unfortunate part is sometimes some of our plants can be what? Can start now to be extinct. Some of them will now diminish forever, and animals also will also be extinct. So check the impact of it, that when you have a mine, the first thing is that you must remove those trees. And when you remove those trees and grass, you promote soil erosion. The second one is that when you remove the very same vegetation, you are destroying the habitats for your plants and for your animals, which destroys your ecosystem, and some of them you won't even know. That will be the end of it. They will be extinct in terms of your plants or even in terms of your animals. Let's check another third point when you go to removing the vegetation. You say, every time the land is destroyed when man does what? Our land will be what? Will be destroyed when a man does what? When a man dumps into your slimes and into dams, and are built to store what? To store waste. Remember what in big industries normally do? They will take their waste products and they will dump them into what? Into dams, and that is not a good factor. It has an impact. Remember your longitudinal profile. What you pour in the upper source or in the middle course, it will definitely go affect the whole river, even downstream. Now, that is also not correct. What is the fourth factor? Some of the chemicals, what do we mean when we say some of the chemicals are leached? You pour them in there, they will be washed away from the mine dumps. When it does what? When it rains, they will be washed away, and this will cause your land and your water pollution. Your land and water pollution. That is the fourth factor. The fifth one, the sinkholes are a danger to our people who live there on day-to-day basis. Sinkholes are a danger in areas where mining, remember sinkholes are where you can fall at any time, or where you started to have your earthquakes or the shaking of the earth, like it's happening most of the time, some of the time in Velcom, where they are a danger because of the mining that is taking place there. Then we say, coal is a major product. Very true. Now we start to find out coal is a major product where? In South Africa. You've got power stations that burn this coal to make what? To make our own electricity. The carbon dioxide, now the negative part that is released there during this process contributes to global warming. Contributes to our global warming, and also this leads to what? This leads to climate change. Remember what we always say. We say that once you ban whatever you do as a human activity or any human activity that occurs, it has always the side effects. Now all what we want is electricity, and we ban the coal for this electricity. Now the very same process of burning this coal in the power stations, it will release a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and this will result to global warming, an increase in temperature, an abnormal increase in temperature globally or in a particular area. And once you started to have global warming, now your climate starts to change, because now it will become too hot for some crops to live there and for them not to cope there, or even animals. And we say these are the environmental impacts that our minds have on day to day on our own environment. So these mines, they are good, they are contributing to the economy, they give us jobs, but we also have the negative side. When in summary, what are we saying? Remove vegetation, problem is that there will be soil erosion. The second one, remove vegetation, you are destroying the natural habitats, you are destroying the ecosystem, and some of the plants will be extinct, so are the animals. You impact on the environment, the land that will be destroyed when you mine, your mines dump the wastes either in dams or in rivers, and that cannot be used as a storage for waste. Then we say some of the chemicals that are used in these industries will be leached, will be washed away. And when will that happen? When it rains. And that will cause your water and your land pollution. Then the other one, we say your sinkholes in mines are a danger in areas where mining takes place. The last one, we say the burning of coal by our own power stations, looking for electricity, will release carbon dioxide, which will definitely lead to global warming and to our own climate change. And that will give me a mouthful to say the primary activities, we have covered them. We have explained them, your agriculture, primary, secondary, tertiary, and the quaternary. After that, we have went deeper into the agricultural sector. We have went deeper into the mining sector. Now I want us to move with the secondary activities. What did we say when we talk of the secondary activities? We said the secondary activities, this is where you do what? This is where you process all the materials that have been produced in the primary sector. This involves the doing what? The processing of materials that have been produced. We use the word industries because we are now talking of the secondary sector. And then examples of them, you'll get them, they are there, they are very clear. Now I want us to move to the very important part, comparison between your light industries and your what? And your heavy industries. Let's compare the two. The first one, we could start to take the examples of the light industry and your heavy industry, and we'll agree to say an example of a light industry will be your jewelry, your clothes stores, your computer stores, your food, your bakeries, and even your beverage stores. An example of a heavy industry will be power stations, your iron and steel factories, your motor vehicle factories, or your paper mill. Those will be examples of the light industries and the examples of the heavy industries. Very important. Now, settlement geography also plays a part here when you come to the location. Say light industries, will always find them where? Within our CBD. Or we can also find them in our zone of decay. Or we can also find them where? In an industrial estate, where you started to have these small areas being specialized or only being occupied by these large, small industries. But contrary to that, you have your heavy industries. Where do you find your heavy industries? You find them on the outskirts, in the rural areas. This is where you find them. And mostly, why are they so far? Because they are now located next to the raw materials. Remember when you were doing the land use zones under settlement geography, we agreed to say you've got your city center. This is where you get your light industries. Then you've got your heavy industries. You find them on the outskirts. And then we said light industries, you find them in the CBD because you use them every day. Jewelry store, you use it daily. Clothes store, they use it daily. Computer stores for internet, they use it daily. But we don't normally visit your power stations every day, your paper mill every day, your motor vehicle. You don't visit them every day. That's why we find them on the outskirts. Now let's check the raw material that are produced between the light industries and the heavy industries. We say light industries, in terms of their material, they produce small type of raw materials. And some of them, they may be partially processed. Small materials, small raw materials, they might be partially processed. But you check now the big, heavy, large bulk that you get where you have heavy industries, and most of them, they are not processed. Now, land requirements of the two, when you compare the two. So when you compare them, light industries, they don't have any specific location. You can put them anywhere. Anywhere, as long as it's within the city center. It's not a problem. And may also be even in a multi-story buildings. You can also put them where you've got flats. Multi-story buildings will include your flats. Then you can put them there. But let's compare now to the large, heavy industries. What do they need? They need a large, flat land. They need a what? They need a large, flat land. And they must never be in a form of flats. It must be a single-storied building. It must always be a single-story. It will fall, because if it's now using motor vehicle factory, where they are now manufacturing cars, and it's a 4 to 5 story building. We don't know what happened. We know what happened in Africa when buildings collapse, but we don't want to dwell into that. Now we say, if we check the light industries, land requirement, no specific requirement, because they're very light. They can be located anywhere. But when you check your heavy industries, there are specification. It must be on a flat land. It must be on a single-story buildings. Now let's check the infrastructure. Remember when you talk of your infrastructure. My learners, this chapter, believe me, it's a walkover. It's a nice, lovely chapter that you can score a lot of marks. I've been talking about this term, infrastructure, if you check, all throughout the presentation of today. We say light industries, in terms of the infrastructure, they use existing network. You don't have to come up with something completely new. Use existing road network, and they will definitely use the very same local power station. They are not going to give you a problem. But check now, the large industries, they need a major road next for transportation. Can either be your railways. Where they are, there must be a lot of water that you must get. And where they are, there must be a lot of power supply that they must get. You see now they start to differ. These ones, light industries, any location, it's okay. Any location, it's okay. Land requirement, it's okay. They produce small products. Sometimes they are not even processed. But when you come to the mother of industries, large heavy industries, they need major roads and railways. They need water supply. They also need your electricity to push. Check the environmental impact. Remember, we have just exhausted this issue of the impact on the environment in terms of mining. Now let's check also in the secondary sector the impact on the environment. Light industries, they have little to no impact on the environment. Jewelry store, where it's located, it was already, gold has already been processed. Now you have only necklaces here and your earrings and what. Less impact on the surrounding area. But let's check heavy industries. Heavy industries, they have a large amount of what? Of water. And they cause a lot of pollution and a lot of noise. So the environment is definitely affected when you compare your light industries together with your heavy industries. And that will be talking to us learners to say, what is it that we must now talk about when we talk of your comparison between your light industries and your heavy industries. That's why I'm saying incorporate part of your settlement geography into this part. You'll find that's why settlement and economic geography, they are written concurrently. Question 3 and question 4, they are even said one next to the other because they are talking directly to one another. Now let's move to very important fact. Now I want us to be sober-minded. I want us to be sober-minded. We've got what you call our core four. Core four. 4 main industrial regions that we get in South Africa. Our core 4, which is Pretoria, Witwatersrand, Vereeniging Complex, or you could say the PWV area, or you could say the Gauteng area, the mother of us. The second one, you've got Durban Pinetown or eThekwini. The third one, you've got Port Elizabeth, Uitenhage, or what you call the Nelson Mandela Bay. And the last one, we've got Southwestern Cape, which is the 4th one. Our 4 main please, you sometimes being asked to mention them. Sometimes you'll be asked, where do you get this one? Pretoria, Witwatersrand, Vereeniging, where is it located? It's in the Gauteng. Durban Pinetown, another name for it, eThekwini, Port Elizabeth, Uitenhage, Nelson Mandela Bay. Then you've got the last one, the Southwestern Cape. Now we say you've got industrial development in South Africa. Once we started to have the availability of raw materials in our country, this has led to the development of what? Large industries in our country. And it's a fact. We can have raw materials and not have factories or industries. Then we say the processing of these raw material or used, they might be semi-finished products to manufacture your final products. Now, let's check factors affecting our industries. Very important. What are the factors that are affecting our industries? Let's highlight it so that it's clearer. When deciding where a site, if you wanted to have a factory somewhere, an industry, the following 2 factors, not only these 2, there are many, but these are the core 2. If you wanted to have an industry, you must locate on these 2, you check the 2 factors. The first one, very important, is that you must check that there are raw materials there. You don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to have an industry there. No, you must check if there's a raw material there. And very important, how close are the natural resources or the very same raw materials to what? To an industry needed to buy the very same product. 2, make sure that there are markets. Markets. You must be able to sell your products. And how close is this industry to the markets where you are going to do what? To sell your products. How close will you be to sell your products in there. In other words, how close are the consumers, the people that buy the product? What do you call this under settlement geography? Your threshold population. Minimum number of people required to support a business. So you must check that you've got raw material, and then you've got markets. And at the very same time, you've got consumers. Under settlement geography, we set threshold population, which is your minimum number of customers required to support a business. Right. Now we say these are the core two. You have the first one and you have the second one. But those are not the only factors. You must also check that there is what? There is transport. Access to major transport routes. Are you going to transport your products effectively between the industry and the raw material source and the market? The third one, you check if there is what? Electricity, or if there is energy. A reliable supply of electricity to make sure that your firm is running on day-to-day basis. The fifth one, which will be the third in this instance, you must check if there are laborers, people that work there. And these people, they must be skilled, yes. And some of them, they must be unskilled. Workforce, yes. The fourth on this instance, but the sixth will be that we must also check the link industries. Take note of this. Very important. This concept reappears even in the column A, column B question. These are the industries that you do what? You sell your product to. Remember up there, or mentioned here, I mentioned the markets. Then you've got part of it will be your link industries. Where are you going to sell your product to? And how close is it to the very same link industries, which will affect your transport cost? Remember, you must make profit. Last one will be your government policies, laws that are governing the very same firm or industry. There must be laws. Government may offer you with sometimes subsidies or even tax incentives to industries to locate where? In certain areas. Do you remember Agenda 21? That to resolve rural urban migration, some of the firms were requested to move to the outskirts, and they will be subsidized, or they will be given tax incentive to locate in this area. And this will reduce your costs in terms of mining of it. Right, I wanted to finish on it, and then we say factors affecting the location of industries. If you want to have an industry, very important. What is it that you must look at? You must look at raw materials, markets, there must be transport, there must be energy, electricity, there must be workers, there must be link industries where you are going to sell your products to, and there must also be government policy that you must consider in there. That's why when you check this slide, you'll start to find that factors influencing the location of industries. What is it that you must look at? We have explained them. There's just a supplementary part to it. You say, make sure that there are raw materials. We have talked about it. Make sure that there are laborers, skilled and unskilled. Make sure that there's power, there's electricity. Make sure that there's transport, so that your products can be transported to market areas. Make sure that there's water, and then also that there's market, and government must make sure that there are incentives, or there are government, that there are incentives, or there are government subsidies that you must get in there. Right? In conclusion, let's take factors favoring or promoting industrial development. Why are we still continue even if we've got challenges? Number one, remember this, wide range of industries. Remember in agriculture we said wide range of raw materials, and it's coming back. Wide range of industries, we've got many industries, but very important, we've got wide range of minerals. Under agriculture we said we've got wide range of agricultural products. The same thing. The second one, do you remember this? We must have a well-developed infrastructure. We mentioned it also under agriculture. Roads, your railway lines, your water and your electricity assist industries to do businesses. The third one, which is new in this instance, you must have your cheap flat land that makes it cheaper to develop your own industries. We said it must be on the outskirts. And then there must be, do you remember this? It's mentioned all throughout this chapter. Availability of both skilled and unskilled labor in the area where industries must be located. So if you want positive factors, first one, you've got a wide range of industries. Second one, you've got a good infrastructure. Third one, you've got cheap land. And then the last one, you've got laborers, both skilled and unskilled labor. And lastly, but not least for today, let's finish with what we call factors restricting industrial development. What are the factors that makes us to say now we are not coping well, things are not going well? That is why we say they contribute with less productivity and they contribute with less profit. What are those factors? Do you remember this? I've mentioned it. Large distance between South Africa and foreign markets. We mentioned it, even though we're only referring to the interior and to the harbor. Now, because we are far from foreign markets, it increases what? The transport costs. 2, there is a shortage of who? Skilled laborers. That's why our country is busy taking some of our learners who complete well in China, in Cuba, to go and learn these skills. There is a shortage of skilled labor, so it becomes a restricting factor because we have to go outside and do what? And attract skilled labor. Today I don't have a problem. I can talk to you from this distance because we've got somebody skilled in what I'm doing. Mine is just to convey the message. Another negative factor is that we've got labor strikes. If people go on strike, we lose money. And this is also another negative factor. And lastly, we've got water shortage in our country. That is why we are getting our water from Lesotho. And it should not occur everywhere. Every geography learner must take care of water. And because we've got water and electricity shortage, I don't want to talk about electricity. Fortunately, I'm finishing without load shedding. And this increase a limit in the industrial development of our country. My learners, that will be the presentation. Economic geography is very easy. If you check the links, check the relationships, check everything with it, you'll find that you can pass and you can pass well if you are determined to do your best. Question 3 and question 4, that's where we must run and get marks. But like I always say, God bless those who keep their lights alight while others are asleep. May you enjoy this chapter and we will meet sometime in December. Thanks. Bye-bye.